Let's play hardball. Good evening. I'm Chris Matthews in Washington. We begin tonight with two big developments from two critical witnesses in Special Counsel Robert Mueller's investigation. First, there's President Trump's former fixer, Michael Cohen, a man who once said he'd take a bullet for Donald Trump, is speaking out. This time, he says, for the country. In his first interview since being sentenced to 3 years in federal prison, Cohen told ABC News that Trump was aware of hush money payments made to Karen McDougal and Stormy Daniels. He was aware, and that he personally directed those payments.
He directed me to make the payments. He directed me to become involved in these matters, including the one with McDougal, which was really between him and David Pecker, and then David Pecker's counsel. I just reviewed the documents in order to protect him. I gave loyalty to someone who truthfully does not deserve loyalty.
He was trying to hide what you were doing, correct?
Correct.
And he knew it was wrong?
Of course.
And he was doing that to help his election?
You have to remember at what point in time that this matter came about, 2 weeks or so before the election, post the Billy Bush comments. So yes, he was very concerned about how this would affect the election.
To help his campaign.
To help him and the campaign.
He's talking there, of course, to George Stephanopoulos. Well, this comes as NBC News confirms that Trump was in the room during the August 25th meeting with Cohen and National Enquirer chief executive and close Trump friend David Pecker during the hush money discussions. Cohen insists he is done being loyal to Trump and done lying, but he said the president is not done lying. Let's listen.
The special counsel did say that you were doing your best to tell the truth about everything related to their investigation, everything related to Russia. Do you think President Trump is telling the truth about that?
No.
And you're still cooperating?
If they want me, I'm here, and I'm willing to answer whatever additional questions that they may have for me.
Right, but so you're saying there are certain areas that you can't get into because you're still cooperating with them?
Correct. And out of respect for process.
And in today's other major development, Special Counsel Mueller issued a rebuke of another critical cooperating witness in his probe, former National Security Advisor Michael Flynn. Flynn will be sentenced next week after pleading guilty to lying to the FBI about contacts with the Russian ambassador. In a court filing this week, Flynn's lawyers noted that he was interviewed without a lawyer and wasn't told that lying to the FBI was a crime. In a memo to the court today, Mueller's team argued agents followed protocol, writing, nothing about the way the interview was arranged or conducted caused the defendant to make false statements to the FBI. The memo went on to add that Flynn, quote, chose to make false statements about his communications with the Russian ambassador weeks before the FBI interview. When he lied about that topic to the media, the incoming vice president, and other members of the presidential transition team. For more, I'm joined by Texas Congresswoman and Judiciary Committee member Sheila Jackson-Lee, Jason Johnson, politics editor for The Root, and former FBI official Frank Figliuzzi. I want to start with the law, Frank. I want to start with you. This guy, Michael Cohen, is not a perfect witness, but he resembles to me, in my memory, and we'll get to the Congresswoman on that next, he reminds me of John Dean in Watergate. Nobody really liked John Dean, but he had a great memory, and it turned out he was telling the truth. In fact, we could prove that with all the tapes that came out from the White House. Dean had Nixon nailed. Tell us about the power of this guy I'm calling Citizen Cohen.
Yeah, so first, people need to understand that the feds don't make their criminal cases on the backs of Boy Scouts and Sunday school teachers. They flip people who have committed crimes and have information of value. For whatever reason, those people who have information of value decide and become motivated to do the right thing and help out. So in my opinion, while we're all focused on Cohen's tremendous value to the Southern District of New York case, the payments to women, and all of that illegal structuring of those payments, even perhaps placing Trump in the room with David Pecker from AMI and Cohen when that criminal act or acts were discussed. I also think the value of Cohen is going to play out over the years, and his history, history will shape his legacy, and that's going to be his cooperation with Mueller. Don't forget, Mueller issued a filing saying that Cohen has provided significant assistance at the core of the Russian inquiry. Ultimately, while we're all focused on a felony right now in SDNY and possible impeachment implications, I don't think the Senate, 2/3 of the Senate, is going to bite on that. I think what's going to turn the tide is the Russian case, and Cohen's help with that, corroborating what Mueller already has, is going to be critical to that.
Congresswoman, talk about that, because you're on Judiciary Committee, but you're also well-informed on foreign policy. Tell me about how you think the Russian piece of this, as Cohen continues to talk, as he's in prison for 3 years, but he keeps talking about the Russian piece.
Well, Chris, as you well know, the Mueller investigation started on the Russian piece. It started on the question of how much the Russians interfered with the 2016 election. The remarks are accurate. It is the pinnacle, if you will. But what surrounds the pinnacle is all the other additions of bad behavior by the President of the United States, now confirmed by his counsel, Mr. Cohen, Citizen Cohen. We on the Judiciary Committee want the Mueller report to be finished, to be able to trace the dots as to the relationship between the meeting that was held in Trump Tower, the claim to want dirt on Hillary Clinton, and how that impacted the campaign. But at the same time, Mr. Cohen has indicated that Mr. Trump was in a meeting dealing with David Pecker to make sure that you catch and kill right before the election. So I would say the Mueller report is the top of the mountain. But what Mr. Cohen has brought about reinforces the president's continuous ability to lie.
I think that's well said. Let me ask you, Jason, because what I like about Cohen's testimony there, actually conversation with George Stephanopoulos, who really got him to talk.
Right.
I thought it was interesting when he said, we know it was about the election. We know it basically is a campaign expenditure, the 130 and 150, all that money to pay these women for these women's silence, basically, was a campaign event and an expenditure because it occurred after the Access Hollywood tape, when he was really in doo-doo, if you will, and the last thing he needed was the word to get out. Not only does he say these things about women, but that he actually pays them off with impunity.
Right, and that he gets other people to help him pay those people off with impunity. What I thought was really interesting about what Cohen had to say is there's only one small slither of a way, and the White House has tried to pull this off today, of suggesting, well, we knew it was wrong. The only way the president could weasel out of this is if he said, I knew it was wrong, but I didn't know it was illegal. And it's very clear that Michael Cohen is saying, yeah, he knew it was illegal and it was wrong. So the president has been surrounded by people who are more than capable of telling him that he was breaking the law, and he directed them to break the law anyway, if we're to believe Michael Cohen's testimony.
Well, that's why you hire a lawyer.
Exactly.
Anyway, in the days since Cohen's sentencing, President Trump and his Republican allies, such as he has, have argued that Cohen's claims shouldn't be believed. Here they go.
I get back to the fact that Cohen's a liar, so I can't draw any other conclusions, and I don't draw very many conclusions when somebody lies to Congress.
This was someone who surreptitiously recorded you.
Terrible.
Is now known as a criminal liar. Yet this was someone who was in your inner circle.
Yeah. Well, it happens. I mean, look, it happens. I hire usually good people, but it just happened.
The fact that you're giving credence to someone who's a convicted, self-admitted liar, quite frankly.
Special counsel has it in the court document.
I understand that. He's a self-admitted liar. You guys all know that.
This is flackery. I mean, Hoogley's doing this. Senator Grassley, this is flackery. This is when you have nothing to say except the boss says this, ditto. Here's how Michael Cohen, rebutted those claims today.
So why should we believe you now?
Because the special counsel stated emphatically that the information that I gave to them was credible and helpful. There's a substantial amount of information that they possess that corroborates the fact that I am telling the truth.
Frank, go over that again about how people who flip are not the most pleasant people because they're flipping for a reason, for self-preservation. And yet, when does the green light go on and you say, okay, I believe him now?
When there's corroboration. So your viewers should know that nothing is brought on in terms of charges on the word of one person, right? There's a massive investigation. There's corroboration. And I think that's really Cohen's value, is to corroborate what is already known, fill in some of the blanks that other people have shared, and then it all comes together, and you have that human face put to it by Cohen. Don't forget, when it comes to Russia, there is classified intelligence. There are human sources, technical sources. What Mueller needs is someone to come into the room and go, yeah, that's right, I was there for that, or I heard that talked about. that helps tremendously, and that's what Cohen's value is.
Why did Cohen, I mean, notice that George Stephanopoulos asked him, is he going to keep lying about Russia, and they left it at that. I want to get to the Congresswoman on this, but first you. Why would he be hesitant to say what the president's lying about, in particular, on Russia?
Well, first, I think he is respecting the process. I think he's been read the riot act by the special counsel's team that he should not. In fact, quite frankly, even this interview with ABC is probably problematic and causing some consternation. But he doesn't want to spill what he knows, what he doesn't know. Remember, he's going to prison for 3 years. At some point, he may decide he's had enough of the inside of a cell and needs to come forward even more and cooperate even more. And I think he's trying to figure out what his role is going to be and when that's going to happen.
Congressman, you're very high ranking on the House Judiciary Committee. As you come in with Jerry Nadler as chair, and you'll be like 2 or 3 down. Do you think you'll be, as a member, I know you can't make the call, but do you expect you'll be calling Cohen as a witness up there in the Hill?
I think we absolutely need to have Mr. Cohen as a witness. Already some of the committees have made invitations. I expect the Judiciary Committee will likely consider doing the same. But let me also speak to the point of Director Mueller and his investigation. His silence is golden. His silence is only evidenced by the patter of feet into the courtroom and the sound of the gavel saying guilty. He's not going to be talking about what Cohen has given him, what Flynn gave, except for Flynn's great missteps today. He's only going to make sounds by the constant indictments. And therefore, Cohen is going to be vital in affirming meetings, along with, remember now, the enormous amount of tapes that were taken from Michael Cohen's law office that they are still going through. So I can imagine, like John Dean, that final tape that ultimately got Richard Nixon to resign, there may be that smoking gun tape. And Mueller doesn't want to blow it. He wants to give us a report that Congress will have the responsibility to do its duty. I hope my Republican friends will begin to see the red, white, and blue flag before they see the party flag.
Wow, that's the June 23rd tape where you had Nixon ordering the FBI to pull back from a case because of the CIA operation. Anyway, President Trump and Counselor Kellyanne Conway are defending Trump's alleged role in directing Cohen into hush money payments by arguing they weren't a crime. Let's watch this flackery.
Here's another one. Michael Cohen pled guilty to something that's not even a crime. Wait a minute. These are campaign. Nobody, except for me, would be looked at like this. Nobody.
You have federal election commissioners, former ones. You have people who are election law experts saying that just because people who said that they were asked to commit a crime here, there's not a crime. One guy said today that Michael Cohen pled guilty to something that's not a crime.
The problem they face here, that Trump finds, is that David Pecker says it's a crime.
Yeah, David
and
Pecker.
Michael Cohen, his lawyer, said he was committing a crime.
They told him it was a crime. And also, ask John Edwards. It's not like we don't have a precedent for people being investigated. I mean, John Edwards got investigated under the Obama administration for this kind of behavior, so the president can't claim that he doesn't know how this operates today.
Well, I think you put it together, the circumstance of the, I've said this before, you know, as we say in Washington, what goes around comes around. Right. That Access Hollywood tape of Trump's, it put away Billy Bush's job. Trump got through it, but it continues to chase him.
Right.
Because that is what he was covering up, that kind of misbehavior.
And he knows perfectly well, look, we know this isn't the only time. These are the two people we've heard about. Who knows how many other catch and kills there were?
I got to go back to the congressman for the last question of this segment. When do you want it? You had a lot of Texas colleagues who are Republicans, more than you'd like, perhaps. You're surrounded by Republicans. When do you sense that they will crack like they did with Nixon?
Yeah. Well, first of all, Chris, the Judiciary Committee is going to be moving forward on basic fact-finding just because we have the responsibility to do so. Mr. Cohen will be part of it. Some other actors in this process will be part of it, sort of building toward understanding more what occurred both in the campaign finance violations and certainly in matters that are constitutional, that don't believe or are not a impeachment inquiry per se. But what I would say to my colleagues, and when they might crack, is, again, there is such a long litany of the lies that the White House has told. There are so many actors that have already been indicted. There are companies that have been indicted. that have surrounded the Trump campaign. There are 13 Russian operatives that have been indicted that surrounded the Trump campaign. They did the Democratic hacking. And the only thing I would say is to do a little reading, find that final smoking gun that I truly believe among the tapes that Mr. Cohen has that Mueller's now reviewing. And I think that that's going to be the step that's going to move us toward making a decision to respond to the American people, and that is to hold those accountable that have broken the law. That is a simple premise. It's not witch hunting. It's not partisan politics. It's holding them accountable and making sure that the White House and the presidency is held with great integrity.
Well said. Thank you all tonight. What an important program tonight. U.S. Congresswoman Sheila Jackson-Lee of Texas, Jason Johnson, and Frank Figliuzzi.